Hello everybody, thank you for tuning in to the Quick Speed channel. My name is Dee and today we are going to get a little bit old school with the whiteboard and we are going to go over all of these Epson tank models that can be used for sublimation. And we're going to compare paper sizes, whether or not that model is borderless, whether or not that model is going to have a maintenance box that you can swap out, and finally, we are going to compare estimated retail prices. At the end of this video, I am going to tell you all of the models that I have personal experience with, and I'm also going to tell you why I have highlighted the 7750 and why I have little stars by the F-150 and the F-570. If learning about the differences between all of these Epson EcoTank models is something that you want to learn, you are in the right place, and I will see you inside. All right, everyone, the very first thing we are going to talk about is the width of the paper that it accepts. This is a standard size piece of paper. You may know it as 8.5 by 11 or letter, or sometimes people call it A4. It is 8.5 inches wide, and many of these printers will not allow anything wider than that. In other words, you cannot turn the paper this way and put it in. It has to be fed this way, and the maximum size that this can be is 8.5 inches. With that in mind, which ones are a maximum width of 8.5 inches wide? You can't put anything wider through that printer. And there are lots of them. So that is a lot of printers that only accept 8.5 inches wide. Let's move on to the ones I didn't fill out. The 7750. Max is 11 inches. 15,000 is 13 inches. 13 inches. 13 inches. Whoops. There are tons of printers that are only capable of 8.5 inches wide, and just a literal handful of printers here that can accept paper larger than 8.5 inches wide. Now let's talk about length of the paper. So this is the length. This length currently here is 11. Legal size is 14. Then some paper is actually even longer, especially if you can find a roll of paper that you cut to size. The 2720 and pretty much all of these going down to our wide format printers are capable of 47 inches. So I'm just going to fill that out right now. All right. Let's talk about the max length size. So for the most part, most of them are capable, if you can find yourself a roll of paper that is 8.5 inches wide, you could conceivably help feed it or set up some type of contraption, as long as you have a design program that can accept 47, actually it's like 47.5 inches. If you have a design program that you can make a design that is that long, you could conceivably keep printing for 47 inches on all of the models that say 8.5 by 47 inches. The first change we see here is the 7750 that allows 11 by 44. And as you get into the wide format printers, your print size is really the traditional paper sizes. 13 by 19, and then we have a couple of exceptions down here, and these are the F models, and the F models are actually true sublimation printers offered by Epson. They are designed a little bit differently, the print heads are a little bit different, and they come with Epson sublimation dye, so you don't have to buy a third-party ink. These printers are really actually for sublimation. The F-150, the max print size is going to be 8.5 by 14. So that's like a legal piece of paper. And then the F-570, that is a really professional sublimation printer. It can handle paper that is 24 inches wide, and then really its only limitations, which is why I just put a star there, are the limitations of your design program and the size of your paper roll. All right, let's talk about borderless printing. Borderless printing means, is that print capable of going all the way to the end of a piece of paper, or does it leave a little margin all the way around the paper? Does it matter for sublimation? Well, it doesn't really matter too much unless you have your heart set on, I need to print exactly 8.5 by 14 or 8.5 by 11, and I need it to go all the way to the 8.5. If you have blanks that you're doing or a special project, there are two printers that you are not going to be able to print borderless on. Just to clarify, you can print borderless on these printers, but this is the size limitation for the borderless on two printers up here. You can only print borderless 4 by 7, and you have to select glossy paper. And that's going to be on the 2720 and the 4700. So let's just say for those two printers, you can't print borderless for sublimation purposes, because for sublimation, we need to be picking presentation matte or premium presentation matte. And you can't print borderless when you select that paper on these two models, 2720 and 4700. All other models are going to allow you to print to the edge of your paper. Now there is an exception down here with this F-570. According to its user manual, it wants a 3mm border. But does it really matter when you can print 24 inches wide? Still, I guess it's not true borderless. It wants a 3mm border. Whether or not you care about that little bit of space that it takes up on the Epson 2720 and the 4700, you gotta kind of decide. It has never gotten in my way. That inability to print all the way to the edge doesn't impact the way I do tumblers, which is probably the blank that comes closest to meeting that requirement of fitting on a piece of paper. And you can still do tumblers even on the models that do not allow complete borderless. You can still do tumblers. Let's move on to maintenance and talk about what that even means. All right, guys, the maintenance box. In the back of all of these printers is a box. Some printers allow access and an interchangeable part that you buy, and some printers do not have a replacement part. What does that mean? Well, it means at some point, every single one of us is going to get an error message one day. And that error message is going to say something to the effect of, your printer needs maintenance, or the ink pad is full, or something to that effect. And you're going to be prompted to either call Epson or to replace the part. And in these entry-level 2000 series, you cannot replace the part. It doesn't exist. You can't open up the back and take out that part and put a new part in. Instead, what happens is you get an error message. You can click a link inside the message. Sometimes that link will work. Sometimes you have to actually call Epson. But usually what happens is you are good for one reset. They will walk you through resetting the chip, and they will allow you more time with your printer. Well, every time you print, excess ink goes into this little tank. It has nowhere to, like, it doesn't go on your paper and make a mess. Instead, it goes into a little tank that is full of waste ink. Now, if you're somebody who does a lot of power cleanings instead of purge printing, I am going to do a video on that very shortly, so make sure you take the time now, hit subscribe, and you will get notified when I do that video. But if you do a lot of power cleanings, you are prematurely filling that tank. which is why it's always best to do purge files versus do a power cleaning. Even the Epson guides will tell you, really, power cleanings are a last resort. After you've done like 1, 2, or 3 things, then do the power cleaning, because a power cleaning is going to fill that tank. And if you can't replace it, then your time is running out with that printer. And it's these 3 here. Any of the Epson 2000 models, whether it's the basic or the top of the line 2000 models, they do not have a replaceable maintenance tank. All of these have a box. These replacement boxes are really not that expensive. In this area here, they all pretty much use the same one. It's about $10 to $12 for these boxes, depending on where you get them. So they are not like cost prohibitive, and they are usually pretty accessible. But a very smart thing to do would be, if you get a model of printer that has a replacement part box, just buy it as soon as you can, put it in a drawer, put it on a shelf, because you know what's going to happen. You are going to be in the middle of the biggest order of your life, and you're going to get that error message. And when you get the error message inside of a printer that has a replaceable box, there's no bypassing that error message. You need a new box, and your printer will not work until you get that new box installed. So if you get one of these printers that has a box, make sure you just pick up that little waste tank as an extra part and put it aside. Be ready when that day happens. It's going to happen. Now let's talk about the price of all of these models. And I just want to preface this by saying there's absolutely no guarantee in price. It's all about supply and demand. Right now, demand is higher than ever and supply is so low. We are still working through a pandemic, and there are really no printers. These printers, yes, they can be used for sublimation, but they happen to be really awesome office printers too, which is why they are so scarce on the market right now. So understand that just because I put a price in this column, it really means nothing. As I'm sure you are aware if you have been trying to capture a printer for sublimation. You're probably finding prices are $100 or $200 more than what you see here. This is what you could expect to pay, and of course, plus any shipping that might be involved, plus any taxes that might be involved. Now I want to talk a little bit about like just my personal opinion and how I have gone about getting sublimation printers based on all of this knowledge. So if I'm considering a printer that I cannot replace the maintenance box, yes, I can get a free reset more than likely. And last resort, I could go to a third party and buy a chip resetter, and hopefully that works. But if I'm looking at a printer that I cannot replace this part, I really don't want to spend any more than the entry level 2720. And that's why I really like this model. I have 2 of them. I have one right behind me there. I have one in another location. They are just really dependable little printers. They print beautifully. And when it's done, it's done. Because it's usually just like $200, that money is made like in hours if you have a good business. So I'm not really put out spending a couple $100 on a printer that they continue to make. Now, I'm just theorizing here. This is just all my personal opinion. These are really readily available, and maybe it's because you have to buy a new printer when it is time. You can't just get a $10, $20 part and continue printing. Maybe that's why they're so plentiful. When that printer is no longer operational, you have to fork over another couple of $100. So in the 2000 series, I really do try to get the 2720 just because I'm spending the least amount of money for all the same features. Why pay $100 more if I don't have to when I can't replace the box and it doesn't do anything differently? Keep in mind, these prices are for features that an office would need. We are not, having automatic document feed, having the option to do double-sided printing. That's where those extra expenses come in, and it's just not necessary if you're going to use it for sublimation. Now, as you get down here, you'll notice the prices really start to jump here. The 5800, 5850, and the 5880. These printers also happen to do lots of things like automatic double-sided, document feed, lots of paper trays. Not necessary for sublimation. Yes, they work. They do work. But they don't print any larger than any of those models. You can definitely replace the box, which is good. But for the money, you could probably buy 4 2720s for the same price as one. Just, food for thought. But I can totally understand why some people are using them. I mean, it is really hard to find a printer these days. So if you went to a website and saw the 5850 and you've been looking for weeks or months, I can understand why you would get it. Nothing wrong with getting it. It's going to be fine. You just paid a lot for it. And you'll be able to replace the maintenance box at least, so the printer could last you potentially a very, very long time. You just keep replacing that box and hopefully, it's a good printer for you. But what I'm really excited about and what I want to tell you guys is this little series here, the 7700 and the 7750. They don't really get talked about all that often because they have 5 slots for ink. They have 2 spots for black ink, and then, of course, your yellow, magenta, cyan. And people are confused by that. Don't be confused by it. You can simply pour sublimation ink into both of those black reservoirs, and it can be used as a sublimation printer. This one here is why I highlighted it. This is so special right here. This is a wide format printer. Now, it's not 13 by 19, but it can print 11 by 17. And look at the price, $650. And they tend to be available because people skip over them. Probably won't be skipping over them after this after this video goes live. But if you see the 7750, let me tell you why it's cool. It's just like a very low profile printer. All these other printers, as you go up in model numbers, I mean, they are massive. Like, they're just like going to take up like a large portion of your office space. The 77 series, they might be a little bit wider, but they're like low profile. They just look like so cool. They don't have all the automatic document feed and things like that. They just look a little like aerodynamic, and they fit into an office setting. You can put them on like their own little stand somewhere in the corner. But this is the sleeper printer of all sleeper printers. I just saw the 7750 on the Epson.com website refurbished for $469, and I missed it. I put it in my cart and I got an error message. They were sold out. So somebody out there is very, very lucky, because I think this is a very cool printer and I want to own one, and I will own one someday. Let's move on to the bigger series, the 15,000, 16.5, 16.6. Now, some of these models get discontinued pretty fast, but they print 13 by 19, and they are highly coveted in the sublimation world. If you can get your hands on a 15,000, especially the 15,000, because it is like the most cost effective. If you can get that printer for close to its suggested retail price, you'll be in pretty good shape. As you go up, of course, you get all the bells and whistles with a regular office printer that do not matter in the world of sublimation. So you really would be just paying an extra $400 or $500 for something you don't really need in sublimation. But again, supply and demand. if you really need a sublimation printer, they work. And finally, let's talk about these two printers here that are actually for sublimation. They come with warranty for sublimation. The F-150, it just came out in 2020, I think the end of 2020. You can't find it anywhere. It prints 8.5 by 14. It does come with an interchangeable maintenance box, and it's about $400 if you can find it. It also has some pretty neat features like that are intelligent for sublimation. Like you can blow up a print and then print it across 4 different pages. It has that technology, and it does have different heads on it that are more geared toward quality sublimation prints. That is not to put any of these down, because could you even tell the difference side by side? Probably not. Not if like thousands of people are using these and building successful sublimation businesses with these printers here. A lot of people do say, okay, this F-150, why would I spend $400 if I can get the same printer for $200 or $300 in the 27 family? Well, it's not the same printer. This is a real sublimation printer with sublimation ink. It comes with it. Epson does make sublimation ink, and it comes with the printer. You also get that warranty of it being an Epson sublimation printer. So if things go wrong, it's like, yes, you are covered of their warranted issues. And being able to have that sublimation printer for lots and lots of years just because you can change that box, I think it's worth that price tag if you can find it. The problem is finding it. They're just, you know, I can't find it. If I can find it, I'm probably going to get one. I just can't, but I can't find it anywhere. And then of course, when you make it really big, or if you just have like lots of money, the F-570 is in fact a real sublimation printer, and you pretty much buy rolls of paper. You can also use sheets of paper, but most people when they get into this league do have the rolled paper on the machine, and they just print out 24 inches. They're very busy people in their sublimation business, and that is the typical price, around $2,500. All right, these are the printers I have experience with, and I wouldn't trade any of them. They're all good. They all do a decent job. You set them up right, and they're good to go. I enjoy them all. The printer that I have my eye on is this guy right here. I want that printer. If you beat me to it, congratulations. Alright guys, I am going to take a photo of this and put it on the screen so that you can prepare to either take a snapshot on your phone or on your computer so that you can have it. Here you go. If you are interested in price checking any of these, I will put links in the show description as much as possible. I mean, some of these just are not even available, so I cannot find a link for you. To access those links, just click on the title of this video and it should open up the show description box. Alright everyone, that is going to do it. I want to thank you for tuning in, and I hope that this video has helped you understand exactly the difference between all these model numbers when it comes to sublimation. Of course, there are features that offices need, and that's why you see such a different price. But these are pretty much the important things that you might want to know when you pick out a printer that you'll be using for sublimation. Even though these are not technically sublimation printers, except for the F series by Epson. If this video helped you in any way, please consider subscribing to the channel and turn that like button blue for us. Until next time everyone, happy sublimating. Bye.